Here's what Barack Obama said about Republicans rigging elections, number 69.
Times, potentially, when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure that's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm.
Pretty disgusting, isn't it? By the way, regarding rigging elections, stacking the system, here's what then President Obama said about how that can't be pulled off in America. Number 74.
The larger point that I want to emphasize here is that there is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections, in part because they're so decentralized and the numbers of votes involved. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
Now, speaking of whining, let's play again what Mr. Obama just said. Number 69.
There are going to be times, potentially, when one side tries to stack the deck and lock in a permanent grip on power, either by actively suppressing votes or politicizing the armed forces or using the judiciary, the criminal justice system to go after opponents. And in those circumstances, pluralism does not call for us to just stand back and say, well, I'm not sure that's okay. In those circumstances, a line has been crossed, and we have to stand firm.
This guy has done so much damage and is continuing to do so much damage. It's hard to put it in words. Stack the deck. It's under his administration that Operation Crossfire Hurricane was launched. That's the operation that alleged that Donald Trump was engaging in collusion with the Russians to get him elected. Still dossier, phony, paid for by Hillary and the DNC, and they called the payment what? Legal expenses. FEC investigated, gave him a slap on the wrist. Nobody got charged criminally, a la Donald Trump by the Manhattan DA, who said that calling the Stormy Daniels money a legal expense was somehow a violation of federal law in some tortured way. Even people on the left said, I've never seen any charge like this before. Suppressing votes. What is your evidence? Remember when Joe Biden said it's worse than Jim Crow, it's Jim Eagle, referring to the election laws in Georgia that made it easier to vote, harder to steal, harder to cheat. No evidence of this whatsoever. Stacey Abrams claimed that she lost her gubernatorial race because of voter suppression. Fact checkers said no evidence of it at all. Using the judicial system to go after your enemies, said Barack Obama. I mean, what have we seen in the last several years against Donald Trump?
This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do, and it cannot be sustained.
The Florida case. Joe Biden, more documents in more places that he shouldn't have had than Donald Trump, with less plausible reason. Donald Trump, as president, had the ability to declassify documents. Biden was not president and had documents going back as far as when he was in the Senate, for crying out loud. and got those documents apparently out of a skiff that's a secret compartment area. You can't even bring in a pencil, let alone take out documents, which he did. And Robert Hur, the special counsel, said there's no question that Joe Biden violated the law by having all these documents, but that no prosecutor would charge him because he's an old man with a poor memory. Meanwhile, they raid Mar-a-Lago, go into closets. It's disgusting. And Obama is accusing the Republicans of using the judicial system to go after enemies after what they've done to Trump. And then you have the January 6th case that's now been dropped. Why? He gives a speech, says, I want you to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, which they never mentioned. And a bunch of people go to the Capitol building. Some break the law. And Donald Trump is accused of fomenting an insurrection, even though not a single one was charged with insurrection. And you had the Secretary of State of Colorado using the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that prevents anybody from having been in an insurrection from holding public office to argue that Donald Trump should not be on their ballot during their primary. It was appealed to the Supreme Court. And what did I tell you? I said that this is going to be won by Donald Trump either 8-1 or 9-0. And it was 1-9-0. But they tried. Now you have the Fani Willis case, DA of Fulton County, Georgia, going after Donald Trump for allegedly election interfering because he asked the Secretary of State to fine 11,000 votes. He didn't say steal them. He said fine them. And now the Secretary of State is now the governor of Georgia. And guess who appeared on a rally during this last presidential campaign side by side with Donald Trump? Governor Kemp, the very man that Fani Willis claims was browbeaten into stealing votes for Donald Trump. He did no such thing. And now that case is about ready to go supernova. And that brings us to the Letitia James case. She's the AG of New York, who ran promising to get Donald Trump, which seems to me to be a violation of the canons of ethics, because a prosecutor is supposed to do justice, not get people. But she promised to get Trump. There weren't any allegations at the time, no charges at the time. And what does she do? What does she do? She brings a civil case against Donald Trump for inflating his properties to extract loans from banks, loans that she claims he otherwise would have gotten had he not fraudulently inflated the value of his properties. Never mind, these banks are sophisticated operators with their own appraisers, and they gave him the loans. Every single dime was paid back plus interest, and at least one banker testified during this trial that he had no problem with Donald Trump, considered him to be a whale, meaning a guy he can get a lot of money from, and he would gladly do business with him again. $350 million judgment with penalties and interest is now about $450 million. And of course, Trump has appealed it. And at least one of the appellate judges looking at the case asked the lawyers for Letitia James, have you ever brought a case like this against anybody else? Essentially, don't all real estate developers do this in order to get loans? And don't banks hire their own people to make sure the properties are what they say they are before they lend the money? And the lawyers for the state of New York could not come up with a single other instance in which somebody else was sued for doing what Donald Trump allegedly did. And Barack Obama has a nerve to talk about Republicans using the courts to go after people. Unbelievable. Now, the former head of the Democratic National Committee says that he believes identity politics should be the Democratic Party's core. We are an identity party, and we're going to stay that way. And we should stay that way, he says. Really? Thanks for watching these clips from The Larry Elder Show. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment. More thought-provoking discussions are just a click away, so stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.